Hit record. Great. So today's coffee and climate topic is our energy port. And with us today to present is Tim Winters, who is the Vice President of Operations of Sprague Energy. And Sprague is a long-term energy provider to the region and beyond. And he's here today to talk to us about the ever-changing world of energy and the role that Sprague has played and continues to play here in Southern Maine. So I'm going to pass it over to Tim. If you want to pull up your presentation, we can go ahead and get started.
Great. Thank you, Susan. All right. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to participate today. My name's Tim Winters. I've been with Sprague for going on 15 years. I grew up in Kennebunk, a graduate of Maine Maritime Academy, and I've been in the energy business pretty much my whole adult life, with a little bit of time at Irving before I came over to Sprague. My almost 15 years at Sprague is roughly 10% of the time the company has been in business and providing energy to our customers in the New England area. And what I'll talk about today is just a little bit about Sprague and what we do and how we do it. And understand that Sprague is a little bit unique when it comes to the energy providers that sit on the South Portland waterfront, where we do a lot more than just provide energy to the greater New England area. Happy to take any questions at any time. And so feel free to jump in, and I'll let the folks from Portland and South Portland figure out how that goes. So, and if you can't hear me or you can't see something, just please speak up. So today we'll just talk a little bit about who we are, what our business units are, a little bit about some of our sustainability initiatives, more specifically about what we do in Maine, how we evolve, and then one of the things is some people don't understand who are involved as our regulatory partners, and what do they mean, and how do we work with them. So the first thing about who is Sprague. So Sprague was founded in 1870 by C.H. Sprague. Our corporate headquarters is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We have terminals throughout New England and New York and Canada as well. And we are over 700 employees. For those of you that are, if the Sprague name sounds familiar, it is the Sprague family originally that is out at Black Point. And it is also Phineas Sprague, if anybody's familiar with his yacht yard in Portland. His family were the founders of our company. They're not involved any longer today, but we'll cover that a little bit here in a minute. So basically, our history is a long history, over 150 years, starting in 1870. And kind of one of the themes that I'll talk about today is we don't provide the energy or the services that we dictate. We provide the energy and services that our customers ask for. So we are a terminaling company located on the waterfront. We don't own oil wells. We don't own pipelines. We use our facilities to provide goods and services that our friends and neighbors ask us to have. Not all of it is always a pretty picture when you look back through the lens of history. So we started as a whale oil company. It's not something that we use a lot today in our advertisement, because you can figure out that it hasn't been widely heralded. From 1900 to 1945, we transitioned from whale oil into the coal business. We provided sole source supplier of coal for the United States Navy in both World War I and World War II. Those were key times because at that point in time, every naval ship ran on coal, and it was a key to the defense efforts and the support during World War I and World War II. Little known point of fact, the last merchant vessel, last United States merchant vessel that was sunk in World War II by the Germans was a Sprague ship called the Black Point, and it was sunk off the coast of New England in 1945, I believe it was. 1950 through 1985, Sprague was a time of growth. A little bit about why we had growth. If you think about coal, when people heated their homes on coal, coal was something that needed to be brought by wagons, trucks, et cetera, to people's houses. So the Sprague family purchased a lot of pieces of property up and down the East Coast so that they could bring coal in by ship, and then they could use those depots or those coal depots to bring coal to people's houses. That kind of gave Sprague a larger geographic footprint in the area than it might have had if it was just a shipyard or something like that. So using those assets, we continued to grow in the 50s through the 80s, buying terminals. And actually, at one point in time during the energy crisis, our Portsmouth, New Hampshire terminal was a refinery. We produced 15,000 barrels a day of gasoline and diesel fuel and heating oil to help the United States get through the energy crisis. Once we got through the energy crisis, having a refinery was not really any advantageous to have a small refinery in New England, and we shut that down. 80s through 2000, we diversified into other products and services, including our total fuel management program, where we started managing the fuel needs of fleets of vehicles, particularly in New York City. One of the things we're very proud of is we've had a long history of supplying fuel to the 5 boroughs of New York City, their emergency services, so fire, ambulance, police, ferries, bureaus of prison. We've been mostly the sole supplier for a long time through a very competitive bid process. And we're very proud of what we've done, particularly if you go back and look at Superstorm Sandy, where the terminals in New York City were wiped out. We were able to get ours up and running within a day and start providing gasoline and diesel fuel to the vital services there. And again, one of the themes I'll talk about is our evolution through this. Early 2000s, we started moving into the low sulfur and the biofuel offerings. We were one of the first companies to offer biofuel and then qualified biofuel that met the standards that the EPA had. Early 2010s through 2020, we continued to grow. Particularly, we became a public company in 2013, and that kind of changed the way that we operated. And then in 2020 through now, we were purchased by a company called Hartree, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. So a little bit about our ownership. From 1870 to roughly 1971, the Sprague family was the sole owner of Sprague Energy. In 1971, they sold the company to Shell. And then the federal government stepped in and said that Shell had a monopoly on the heating oil on the East Coast of the United States, and actually mandated that Shell divest the company. At that time, we were bought by a Swedish family, a private company called the Axel Johnson Company. And from 1971 until 2022, they were either the primary owner as a private company or the major shareholder as a public company. In 2022, the Axel Johnson family, which is based in Sweden, decided to divest us, and we were purchased by a company called Hartree. Hartree is a New York-based energy and commodities company that has been at the forefront from the early 1980s through today in energy trading, everything from electricity to fuels to ethanol to biofuels, et cetera. And they were interested in purchasing Sprague because they saw that we would have great synergy, that they could partner up our physical assets with their trading capabilities and be able to use the two together to provide energy far into the future for our customers. We divide our businesses into 5 segments. Refined products, which is, if you look around South Portland, many of you would think, the beautifully painted tanks over in South Portland. Many of you would think that that's all we do, that is our refined products business. And when we say refined products, that means anything from heavy fuel oil, like a 6 oil that's used at some power plants or paper mills still, all the way up through biodiesel or bioheat. So diesel, heating oil, biofuels, et cetera. But we're also in the natural gas business. So we're in the natural gas business much as some utility companies are in the electric business. We don't own any natural gas infrastructure. We're a purchaser and a trader and a supplier through the infrastructure that the utilities have. And the same thing goes with electricity. We also are electricity brokers supplying electricity to customers in the Northeast. We're also in the solar business. We have a division called Sprague Solar. Sprague Solar was born, the genesis is right in South Portland. So if you're driving up 295 heading north and you look to your right, you'll see a tank that says first solar tank in the nation. So in 2017, we were the first company in the country to put thin film solar on top of our tank tops to generate electricity to hopefully cut down on our electric needs and be able to provide electricity that we could put into the grid as well. And then we do something we call materials handling, which is kind of everything else. So materials handling is where we have customers that want to use our infrastructure either for liquids, solids, or bulk materials, and they bring them through our terminals, and then we handle them for our customer, which could include offloading them from a ship, loading them into a truck or a rail car, or storing them. In South Portland, two of the biggest areas one that you see readily would be road salt that you can see from the highway. Sprague doesn't own or sell any road salt. We handle it for our customers. And then one you can't see, but we'll talk a little bit about later in South Portland is kaolin clay, which is a white clay that's mined out of the ground and used in some manufacturing. So those are the 5 business units that we cover. Just a little bit about our footprint. We go from the Montreal area down to the Long Island area, out to Pennsylvania. We own or control 216 storage tanks with a tank capacity of about 14.4 million barrels. And we turned over about 33 million barrels of liquid product last year. In the natural gas business, these are the pipeline networks. We have transportation rights on all of the pipelines that you see listed here, 15 different pipelines in 13 states with 40 utilities, with over 62 million BTUs and over 14,000 customers. So who is a Sprague Natural Gas customer? It's not a company like Fairchild or a hospital. We tend to be what's in the small commercial market, or the B2B, business to business. We like to say we're the kind of the kings of the pizzeria unos and the strip malls. So small enough that the utilities don't want to work with them, but large enough that there's somebody needs to supply them. But one of the things we don't do is residential. We're not involved in residential natural gas. So we have a series of slides coming up, and I'm going to foreshadow here. This is the natural gas business. The big blue box that you see in the bottom is where Sprague interacts in this. We don't produce, we don't process, we don't store. We're involved in the transportation and the distribution, with customers involved in manufacturing, retail, government, healthcare, commercial real estate. In the materials handling business, same thing. We're not the people producing salt, paper, windmills, etc. We're not transporting them to our terminals, but when they get there, we offload them, we store them, we load them back out, and then we ship them to our customers. So a little bit about sustainability, right? So one of the things is what, people are interested in, how is an oil company or an energy company involved in sustainability? Well, the first thing, we were awarded a Sustainable Impact Award for the energy industry for having the first tank top solar unit in the United States. Since 2017, we've expanded this to our Albany, New York facility, which you can see in the bottom left. That's a picture of 2 of the tanks in Albany. This year, we'll be putting it in our Bridgeport, Connecticut facility, and we've got plans to put it in a number of others. We're also marketing this across the country to other energy companies as well. Biodiesel, we were the first to market a qualified biodiesel in the United States. And then a really interesting product that has really just come to the forefront in the last year and a half, 2 years, is renewable diesel. I apologize, I'm not a chemist. I'm a Maine Maritime Academy deck graduate, so chemistry was not required. But renewable diesel is chemically identical to petroleum diesel, but it's produced from organic substances, plants, etc. You cannot tell the difference from a chemical compound. However, it's renewable, it's cleaner burning, it has lower cold flow properties, and is a really interesting fuel. We're currently marketing that in the New York metropolitan area. We partnered with a service station down there to become the first provider of renewable diesel through a retail station in the New York area. And this is something that we think we're going to see coming further and further across the country, and we'll expect that it'll be in our New England market very soon. And then one of the things most people don't realize is we are the largest handler of wind components on the East Coast. So land-based wind, uh, the majority of the land-based wind for Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont comes through our Searsport, Maine terminal. And this is a picture of somebody standing next to a couple of wind turbine blades. We just recently offloaded the largest wind turbine blades that we've ever handled at 176 meters. So they're getting bigger and larger. And then if you're following the news, Sprague is working hard to become a player in the offshore wind industry. We are offering the use of our terminal in Searsport. We're willing to reconstruct and offer that to the state of Maine to use as an offshore wind terminal point. Renewable diesel, again, just really interesting. This is something that you should keep an eye on. I mean, it's better for trucks, it's better for vehicles, it's a cleaner burning fuel. It is just, and again, chemically identical to petroleum-based diesel, but with a much better performance properties. Again, some more wind pictures here. So these are pictures of our Searsport terminal. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see that we have two docks up in Searsport. The one to the right or to the east, there's a wind blade vessel alongside. And then with the one to the west is our liquid pier. And you can see the terminal and the warehouses and the tank farm in the background. And then most recently, this is pretty exciting. So our parent company, Hartree, purchased 7 biomass electric generating plants at the end of 2022. At the end of this month, those plants will be transferred over to Sprague for operations, and we will begin operating these biomass plants in New England. They range from Fitchburg, Mass, up to Jonesboro, Maine. And kind of interesting, they rely on, you see the divide, the main plants are in the main wood basket. And then if you think of New Hampshire with the mountain pass, we have plants on both sides of the mountain pass, which makes transportation of biomass much more affordable to be in both of those areas. So this is pretty exciting. We're generating power today, putting it into the grid, and we are in the process of working with a number of partners to look at unique and different ways that these plants can be used. And I can't really talk too much about it, but these plants have some tremendous opportunity to be used in the carbon capture business. So it's something that people are working on today to see how we can use these plants to work on carbon sequestration. Now to get a little bit more in detail about our facility specifically, this is an overview of our Searsport facility. We've been in Searsport for over 110 years. The footprint has grown. If you think of this terminal as an L shape, can you see my cursor? So this L is the Sprague terminal, and then this area here is the Irving terminal. The Sprague terminal is a combination of a defense fuel farm that was purchased 30 years ago or so that used to supply jet fuel to the Loring Air Force Base. But as you can see, it's a multimodal terminal. It has warehouses, windmills, road salt, kaolin clay, refined products, caustic soda for use in manufacturing, and has both rail and truck and waterborne access. This is our South Portland terminal. So South Portland is a conglomeration of 4 different marine terminals over the years that used to sit in here, from the Koch brothers to BP to Getty and several others, and was also the site of a steel mill at one point in time. So some people in South Portland may hear it referred to as the Rolling Mills area, and that was the Rolling Mills steel mill. Again, a multimodal, with the exception we don't take bulk products across the pier here because it's a different style dock, but we have road salt, kaolin clay, asphalt, which we'll talk a little bit about later, which is one of the things people don't think about liquid terminals storing, is asphalt and the important role it plays in all of our lives. A little bit about evolution. This is a picture of our Searsport liquid dock over 100 years ago. And you can see a 5-masted coal schooner, and you can see 3 steam cranes located in the background. This dock has been largely rebuilt, but the framework on which those 3 steam cranes sit on is actually still there today and is used for supporting our infrastructure on the dock. So as you can see, it's been pretty important in the Sprague history to continue to evolve, because we would not be very competitive if this was the mode that we were still using today. So what does Searsport look like today compared to that? This is our mobile harbor crane. Anybody that's in Portland has seen, there's a couple of these that are down at the IMT terminal, but there's also one up in Searsport. And this is used for wind products, road salt. Really kind of a funny story is back in 2020, Governor Chris Christie found out that we had this crane. And I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a little political story about Governor Chris Christie and him shutting down the bridge to his political adversaries. Well, around the same time, the state of New Jersey ran out of road salt, and they had a big winter storm coming. And Governor Christie called us up, his office, and I actually answered the phone, and they said, "We see you have a crane and there's a ship at the dock. Could you guys put 20,000 tons of road salt in for us and send that down to New Jersey, please?" And we said, "Well, there's a couple of problems. One, that's a tanker at the dock, so we can't put the road salt in. Number 2, we don't own the road salt, so you'll have to deal with our customer Morton Salt." And so it didn't work out for that ship, but about 10 days later, a tug and barge came and loaded 10,000 tons of salt for the state of New Jersey and made a couple of trips down. So we're actually known pretty far and wide for what we do. Again, in the evolution at Searsport, we just last year started handling wood chips. So these wood chips were brought in, and for the first time that we handled a imported load of wood chips. This is a picture of the first ocean wind scale model. This came through the Searsport terminal, both to be put in the water and taken out of the water. This was the University of Maine's. Yes.
Sorry, you said you wanted questions along the way, and I see Bill Weber has a question. Do you want to take that?
Sure, whatever you guys would like to do. And just to give you a heads up, I have about 10 more slides, so I want to be respectful of whatever time you folks have allotted. So sure, Mr. Weber.
I'll hold off for your 10 slides. This discussion on Searsport is fascinating, and we want to get a little bit more into it. So I just put my hand up to get in the row there, but please continue.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Ocean Wind, we've been involved working with the University of Maine at Orono since they were first selected as one of the Department of Energy finalists for the Ocean Wind contest that they were involved in. Again, land-based wind, a huge product that comes through our terminal. It's really pretty exciting. It's amazing where they go and how they do it. These projects are planned out years in advance, from everything from the site work to the route that they're going to get there. I apologize if you find yourself on Route 1 in the summer and you're stuck behind a 170-meter windmill blade. It can be a little bit frustrating for a little while until they get to where they're going. So getting closer to where we are today, this is an overview of our Portland terminal. So anybody that's come over the bridge, and you can see it's a little bit of an older picture because it's actually got a different bridge in it. But our Portland terminal has, we purchased this from the Merrill family 17 years ago, I think it was. Is a warehouse terminal, no petroleum on site. And it is used from anything from forest products to Icelandic bottled water and anything and everything in between. That's a picture in the upper right of some newsprint. This is a picture of wood pulp. So a lot of Mainers, admit I was one of them. I'd heard the term wood pulp throughout my life growing up. Never knew what it looked like. These are bales of wood pulp. So the trees are ground up, boiled, pressed out into large sheets of kind of white cardboard, folded in amongst themselves. And then later this will be shipped to a paper mill where it'll be then re-put into that process and made into finished paper. This is an example of newsprint. These rolls are usually about 5 feet high and about 4 feet in diameter, and they're kept in what's called a press-ready condition, which means they are in a climate-controlled warehouse where their temperature is maintained at around 70 degrees with a certain humidity to keep them ready to go right from a warehouse onto a printing press. And then I'm not going to shy away from it. We handle coal. And I know this is a point of discussion for many folks in Portland. The one thing I'll say about coal and our customers, we don't own coal mines. We buy coal on behalf of one of our customers. It is not for use out of state, and I know that's been discussed before. This goes to a customer in Maine, and coal is one of their fuel sources. And I would say it's pretty critical for them to be competitive in the industry that they are in to be able to utilize this fuel. And when that customer no longer needs coal, we'll no longer be bringing coal through the city of Portland. This is not a model. This is an actual picture. This is a bulldozer in the hold of a salt ship with the crane bucket, as you can see in the left-hand corner. So, kind of dangerous work. As you dig the coal out, the bulldozer has to kind of push it into a pile so that the crane can continue to remove the salt. Typically takes about 5 days for a salt ship to offload. They usually have 5 holds of salt, about 40 to 45,000 tons of road salt. And depending on the weather, we will see anywhere from 200 to 400,000 tons come through both Searsport, Portland, and Newington, New Hampshire every year for use throughout New England. Again, this is an example of what we call materials handling. We do this for our customer. We have a number of salt customers. Probably the most recognizable one is Morton Salt, the same folks that provide the blue table salt with the yellow rain-coated person on the front. Kaolin clay, I just like that people don't understand kaolin clay, pretty interesting product. Kaolin clay comes in as a liquid slurry. So a liquid slurry is a solid and water mixed together to make, basically, I would tell you this is the consistency of a vanilla milkshake. So this product is dug out of the ground in Brazil. Fresh water is added to it, and it is brought up to the state of Maine in a tanker, pumped off and received into our clay plant. And this has, several uses, but the main use here is for coating paper. So if you think about paper, under a microscope, it kind of looks like the surface of the moon. There's a lot of craters. In order to get a glossy finish on paper, you need to fill in and coat the paper so that you fill in those craters. And this kaolin clay is what is primarily used for coating paper. And one of the interesting things about it, why is it used for coating paper? Well, one of the primary kinds of paper it coats is food grade paper. So if you're down at Becky's Diner and you get a coffee and you throw a couple of sugars in there, those sugar packets are coated with kaolin clay. Why is that important? because let's obviously over time there's a potential for you to ingest some of the coating, and this is a natural ingredient. Again, we don't own or buy or sell kaolin clay. We handle this for our customer. Interestingly enough, if you think about the root word kaolin clay, not through South Portland, but it is also the root main ingredient of kaopectate. So if your coffee wasn't good, then you have another option. But this comes in 8 to 10 tanker loads per year, and is shipped out 5 days a week on both rail cars and trucks. We handle it in both Searsport and South Portland. The same company. And why would you ask, do they have 2 kaolin clay plants in the state of Maine? It's because there are 2 different railroads. So railroads are not the easiest for our customers to deal with, particularly if it involves switching from one railroad to another. So it's beneficial for them to have 2 kaolin clay facilities. And then just a little bit about asphalt. Just so we are the largest handler of asphalt in the Northeast. Again, this is what we call a material handling project. We don't buy or sell asphalt. We don't own any of it. We do it for our customers. The asphalt we use has 2 main uses. One is to make roofing shingles. So that is an asphalt-based product. So we handle roofing grade asphalt to make shingles. And the other is what's called road grade asphalt. And road grade asphalt is essential in New England for our roads, because of our winters and the stress that is put on our roads, both from the weather and from the utilization of road salt. Asphalt is our primary road material. So, if you ever lived in Florida, you're going to see cement in the roads, but you live in the Northeast, you're going to see asphalt. One of the points I like to make, and whether you drive an electric car or whether you have a internal combustion engine car, asphalt is essential for roads. And the easiest and most cost-effective way of transporting asphalt is by water to large facilities that hold the asphalt to be used in road paving. The other thing I would say is that as we switch and transition to electric cars, asphalt is going to play an even more important role because I think most people are aware that electric cars are significantly heavier than internal combustion energy cars, which means our roads need to be beefy to be able to withstand that weight load as we transition to both electric cars and electric trucks, which I think electric trucks we will probably see in the near future as well. Then again, I talked about renewable diesel and biodiesel. We're also trying to work with some folks to get into the business of sustainable aviation fuel. You might hear it called SAF or SAF. So this is aviation fuel that's made from wood residue, animal fat, algae, cooking oils, etc. So used a little bit different characteristic than a diesel. It's more like a kerosene. Biodiesel, which is made from vegetable oils, animal fats, and restaurant grease. And then renewable diesel, which is vegetable oils, animal fats, etc. So we currently deal with the first 2, renewable and bio, and we're in the investigation stage of partnering with some folks to do sustainable aviation fuel. And then there's a picture that you can see from 295. A little bit about just for those of you that are interested in our painted tanks. There was a contest 15 years ago with Art All Around in Portland to paint our tanks. That's why you see the interesting blue and brown and yellow and rust-colored tanks that are painted there. Those were painted by the design was by a Argentinian artist that was a nationwide or worldwide competition and created the largest outdoor art project in history. A little bit about our regulatory partners. This comes up a lot. People will say, who do you work with? Who's in charge? Well, to be honest, there are a lot of folks that have a great deal of interest in what we do. And this is everything from how and what we do today, and even bridges into sustainability or resiliency. So there's a lot of discussion about resiliency. Our terminal at the far west end of the harbor is in one of the most resilient areas from any of the maps that you will see. But we work with the Coast Guard. They're our primary regulator for our tanks and our infrastructure. The EPA takes over where the Coast Guard lets off. OSHA, obviously, for our workforce. The Department of Transportation, both for the security screening for us and for the people that come in and pick up at our terminals. The Army Corps of Engineers, who regulates and maintains the federal channels and also permits us if we need to dredge at our docks. In the state, obviously, we work with the DEP, many of the different air bureau of the bureaus. There's an air bureau, the oil terminal bureau, the stormwater bureau, the wastewater bureau, and the waste management division. We interact with them frequently. We're subject to multiple inspections annually from all the different bureaus. They're responsible for permitting, response, licenses, reporting, and inspections. City of South Portland, very active in what we do. Particularly, I would say not only the city from a permitting, et cetera, standpoint, but the fire department. I work with fire departments across New England and in New York, and I will tell you there is probably not one that I deal with that is as technically savvy and proactive as the South Portland Fire Department. I can tell you that without a doubt. They are a great partner in the port, and they represent the city well in making sure that we do what we need to do, as do the ships that come in, et cetera. Then in regards to response, preparedness, training, and incident actions, again, the Coast Guard, the EPA, the DEP, state and county emergency management groups, the local fire department. We take part in industry trade groups. We take part in all of the activities, the Marine Port Safety Forum, the Area Maritime Security Committee, the Area Maritime Committee, so a number of different groups. We probably don't go more than 10 days without having a regulator on our facility. And that's it for me. I guess I'll take the slide deck down if you want, or leave it up if somebody wants me to go back to it.
Yeah, I would leave it up just in case there's a slide someone wants to go back.
All right, great. Susan, I'll let you MC.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a really great presentation. I personally learned a lot about the different energy sources and materials that are managed by Sprague. I had no idea. But I want to make sure there's enough time for everyone's questions, which I see are already popping up. So I'll start with Bill, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Sure, thanks, Susan. Thanks, Tim. This is, as Susan said, this is kind of a mind blow on the great stuff that Sprague is doing. I'm specifically interested in the work that you're doing at Sprague up in Sears Point at Mack Point there. The Sierra Club has been pushing so far unsuccessfully to choose Mack Point rather than Sears Island for the wind turbine assembly, and obviously you guys have got a lot of experience in that area. One argument against that has been that there's not enough room at the Mack Point site. Do you know if that is an issue, or if aside from the sediment, the dredging that's required, is there any other issue that would preclude Mack Point being used? And then I do have a second question.
Sure. Please understand that I'm biased.
Can we take
So
the slides down so that people can see each other to talk?
absolutely.
Thank you.
So please understand that I am biased, but I believe that we have addressed all the questions. I believe that we have both the room and sufficient plans to provide a number of alternatives to the state of Maine in that regard. Not our decision, of course, but we'll continue working with all of the stakeholders to present what we think maybe is a better alternative, or a more publicly acceptable alternative.
Okay, thank you. The second question is noticing that you also handle coal at Searsport, and recognizing that that Mac Point site is far different from the neighborhoods that where you have facilities in Portland and South Portland. Is it possible for you to bypass Portland and South Portland for the coal and bring it directly up to Searsport?
So that's an old picture. We no longer handle coal in Searsport. So technically, we haven't handled coal for probably 20 or 30 years in Searsport. We have handled a product called pet coke, which in the picture looked like coal. But we handled pet coke for a single customer that was in the Mid-Coast Maine area that they were able to use as a solid fuel source. And they've shut down, and we no longer handle pet coke through that facility.
Technically speaking, though, it would be possible.
Theoretically, yes. I mean, we can handle a bulk material in Searsport. Again, I'm not sure that the customer that it goes to, whether that would change their economics or not based on the transport distance.
Thank you. David, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, well, thanks so much for this presentation. It was very informative. My question is about the coal in Portland. The Conservation Law Foundation recently announced that all coal plants in New England are either shut down or scheduled to be shut down. So my question would be, can you tell us whether that coal goes for power generation or is it a thermal source for something industrial?
It is the second. It is a thermal source for something industrial.
Okay, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Southard. I'm a nurse practitioner and I live in the West End. I have 2 little girls, and we've been doing some advocacy work around the coal pile here. We have some pretty stunning pictures of dust that comes in through windows of studios and offices that are next door to the coal pile. We've been working with the DEP for the past year. I guess my question is how seriously Sprague takes the health threat of coal dust that ends up on people's businesses and in the air around the West End. And, you know, we've been working with the DEP and many interventions have happened, yet this last delivery when air monitors were down there, coal dust again went all over property and in sail mains, sailboats that are stored nearby that kids use in the summer. And I'm just wondering what Sprague's intentions are of their understanding of the health risk of this.
So we are also working, Sarah, with the DEP to figure out what is the best solution to manage that down there. We have a number of initiatives that we're working with them on right now. For example, one of the issues is wintertime deliveries are especially problematic due to the extreme dryness and our inability to put water on the pile due to the weather conditions. So one of the things we're looking at is limiting deliveries during the winter time, but also we're looking at fencing with them and other alternatives. We take it very seriously, and I would tell you we're working with them weekly on this to figure out what the best solution is.
Yeah, that's great. I'm wondering too, if, you know, we've worked with the DEP and they have very specific requirements when they consider something a risk to public health, but the new data coming out of, you know, the medical research is that even small increases in PM 2.5, which are those really tiny particles, have a bigger impact than we thought. And coal miners who work above ground also have massive pulmonary fibrosis from their exposure. And so I just want to be sure that Sprague understands that, you know, there are people who have been exposed to this dust for many years, and they actually clean up the dust in their offices on their own. And so there hasn't been any input from the CDC of the best handling for that. And what is Sprague, since, you know, you guys are doing the science of the coal, what is Sprague's recommendation for people who maybe touch coal dust on their own?
So I don't have anything to add to that right now, Sarah. I'm not prepared for that kind of question, but I mean, we are working directly with the DEP. We do understand that there are concerns, and we do understand there is a difference between coal miners and coal pile management. We're looking for a solution that will make the folks in the West End satisfied with what we do. That's something we're working on. Like I said, we've got a group working directly with DEP almost constantly right now to figure out what that is.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks for your question, Sarah. Frederick, if you want to go ahead and ask yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, everybody. So my question is really around those the solar tank. Every time I drive by that on 295, I get this sense of kind of greenwashing. So my question is, what sort of carbon measurement activities does Sprague do for their operations, not necessarily your scope 3 stuff, not the stuff that's happening with your product, but with your operations itself? You know, I see a lot of diesel operated machinery and all those photos. So do you have any insights on that?
I don't have it with me, but we do all of the sustainability reporting. As a public company, you can probably find our last edition when we were a public company of our reporting. I can find out if we can get more of that information now. I don't have it with me today. I do have Nick Scally, who's our marketing director, is on today. Maybe he can answer.
Yeah, it's a good question. There is a sustainability report on the website. If you go down to the footer and the About Us, you can see actually we track all those things. So we're tracking, emissions, we're tracking what's happening with any of the liquid materials. So you can see the data right there. It's a PDF, so it's kind of buried. So just the footer About Us, and on that page, there'll be a link to it. But it reports on all those things that you're asking about.
Yeah. It must be pretty buried because I was looking for it for a while, but okay, I guess I see.
Yeah, no, we are, well, and just so you know, we're redoing the website right now. We're launching a new site in about 3 weeks, and we're highlighting a lot of that information because people, they want to know and they deserve to know. So we will have a sustainability section that'll be, as we call, higher in the navigation or the hierarchy up there. But yeah, I agree. I'm new to the company. I've been here 6 months, and that is one thing where we want to elevate a lot of the great history and legacy of the company, like Tim spoke to, but also a lot of the sustainability initiatives.
Cool. And then I'll just put this one out there. Maybe we can get to it afterwards. So I'm looking at some of the 10Ks and financial reporting. It looks like there's a lot of money going out and a little less money going in than historically has been the case in it. So I just want to know, like, what money is being allocated to infrastructure change for sea level rise mitigation, and how are you all going to handle all those terminals that are sitting right on the water as that becomes a problem?
So this is something our engineering group works on, monthly. I mean, we have a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan for our infrastructure. We work with engineering companies to evaluate what we have. We inspect our docks, our facilities annually. So and the amount of money I don't have at my fingertips right now, but we spend $15 to $20 million a year maintaining our facilities from a capital standpoint. And that covers everything from reinforcing the shorelines to maintaining our waterfront facilities.
Fred, I just want to add that there is a DEP process going on right now. The natural, and Roberta's on it, the Natural Hazards Risk Assessment Group, because there's new legislation for the Chapter 600 rules to dictate the prepared or the adaptation specifications for sea level rise over the next several decades.
Each state is a little different. I would say Maine is one of the more proactive with the most recent Chapter 600 changes that they made. So we work together with them on that.
Thank you. Roberta. Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, there. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Julie, you kind of brought up what I was going to speak to. And what I wanted to, so I have a two-part question. One is that you had asked, a gentleman had asked about the emissions, and the person from Sprague can speak to this after, if you'd like to add to what I have to say. I've been involved with Protect South Portland and the city of South Portland that's been concerned about the emissions from all the tank farms in Maine. We have a lot of them in South Portland, as you probably know. And what we found over the years is that testing and monitoring was not something that was required to be done, that there was self-reporting on the behalf of the tank farms. With legislation that had painstakingly was passed in the legislature, LD 71, there is going to be fence line monitoring around all tank farms in Maine, which takes 2-week samples. And there will be data from that, and also testing twice a year of the heated tanks, which include the asphalt tanks. That is not going to start until it was passed in 21. It's not going to start until November of 24. So we will start getting data about the emissions on the tanks after that. I don't know if that's helpful to know about, but there's been a lot of work going on around it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, so we have been following the requirements that we have. Self-reporting sounds interesting, but there are a large effort is put into doing that and following the programs that the EPA and the states lay out in regard to self-reporting. So it does follow their calculations to get to the number.
Thank you for sharing, Roberta. Sarah, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Susan. Tim, I'm curious about the renewable diesel, and I guess a couple questions. One, sort of what would you need to bring it into the market here quicker? Is it a matter of like understanding demand or having a certain amount of demand? Or is it the infrastructure? Like, do you already have the infrastructure to bring in renewable diesel to the region?
So we have, whoop. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to jump in, but no, this is an interesting one. And so renewable diesel is very saturated out in the West Coast. And the reason for that is a lot of the tax credits and different legislation that exists there.
Yeah.
So we have brought this into the New York area terminals. We have a retail station that we partnered with. We are encouraging legislation about these clean fuel bills. There's one now before the New York legislature. It was on last year, but it didn't pass through the committee. We're hopeful this year it will. But that's what we need. You know, as Tim talked about earlier, we take the things, our customers, so we help provide those things, we transport them, we buy them, we supply them to people. But we need that sort of legislation out on the East Coast. We were actually the first person east of the Mississippi River to do that with that retail station. But the reason is because we don't have the same economics that they do in California and Washington State and Oregon right now. I mean, you'll see, we were all excited about having one renewable diesel station in New York. They have about 600 probably in California. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of it is for just some of it's legislative, some of it's incentives, but just the demand, you know, we need to see that demand from the customers. But as Tim spoke about earlier, you know, I know there's the huge rush to electrification, but these fuels that we have are a drop-in solution today, and they reduce emissions up to 75%. So we're doing a lot of work in New York City now around this. And, you know, it's super exciting because it's not just its emissions, but it's the particulate matters. It's every part of it. And you can overnight for what right now is only about a 10% increase in per gallon cost on diesel.
Yeah. All of the ski mountains in Maine have reached out to me about this. I think there's a fair amount of demand in terms of an interest in this for, you know, medium and heavy duty and off-road vehicles that could use it today. So I certainly think there's demand and interest, and I'm sure municipal fleets would be interested as well here in the state. So, but you do have the infrastructure. It's just a matter of like essentially incentives and subsidies and the cost of bringing it in.
Correct. Yeah, we can drop it in as soon as there's somebody that wants to purchase it.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I'll reach
and-
out to you. Maybe.
And then next, it is expanding to our Albany location, so Rensselaer Terminal is our next one. So exactly as we get demand, we want to bring that in. You know, it's a great fuel source, immediate reduction in emissions, drop-in solution, no performance benefit. You know, even the performance is better
Yeah.
actually. So yeah, no, we'd love to expand it across the footprint as quickly as we can.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, that. Oh,
wanted
Julie, do you
to
have
add a
something to
couple
add?
of- Yep, I do. I wanted to add a couple of thoughts. I really appreciate everyone being on this meeting, and especially Tim and Nick for coming to talk. I suspected they would get some difficult questions, and that's fantastic. And you know, the lens that we're looking at this through, as you know, I told Tim earlier, like, my goal is to get off fossil fuels, but it's not to shut down companies, and I see their evolution, and I think that this is going to be an evolution. You know, we might want to stop you know, bringing in these products right now, but the fact is that there are drop-in replacement. There are certainly drop-in replacements like air source heat pumps for homes and stuff like that, but there are a lot of other processes that don't have drop-in replacements. And so what I appreciate is that Sprague is sort of looking towards, you know, how they can bring in other energy sources. It was a really good, informative presentation. I hope everybody learned a lot. And I just appreciate you guys being here. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Glad we had the opportunity. And if anybody has any further questions or more information, Julie and Susan have my contact information. We've shared this presentation with the Chamber of Commerce and a few other groups as well. And we're happy to talk about it and, you know, and provide what information we can.
Yeah, if anyone does have any additional questions, please reach out to either Julie or myself. We'll be sending out a follow-up email. So we can include our contact information, and then we can reach out to Tim.
Can I just give Sarah a chance to have one last?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, certainly I don't think that this was implied by the comment, but our advocacy efforts certainly don't want to shut down any companies, and we certainly don't want to lose, you know, any Maine jobs. It does seem like a little bit of public advocacy is necessary to get changes in place that protect our health. I think talking about sea level rise is really important, but we do need to acknowledge that, you know, 8 million people a year around the world die from air pollution. People have heart attacks, go into AFib, have strokes when air quality is bad. And so our advocacy is not about shutting down businesses. I think I just want to be clear about that. It's about innovation.
Sarah, I understand completely. Never felt you were. And
Yep.
again, that's one of the things we've been working with South Portland on as they develop their comprehensive plan. And that's one of the things we talk about, right? We are an energy company, but we're also a logistics company. And so, you know, so we see that we have a valuable piece of waterfront realty that can be used in many modes of transportation. And whether it's energy, whether it's road salt, whether it's solar panels, whatever it is, you know, we plan on utilizing that to provide what our customers need. Not being an integrated oil company, we're not beholden to producing oil that comes out of the ground, refining it, and then distributing it. So if there is a higher and better use, and those are the terms we use all the time, if there's a higher and better use for our facilities, we plan on doing that. One of the things I really didn't touch upon, and I know one of the gentlemen talked about our solar panels. You know, originally our idea with solar panels was to cut our electric costs. It was simply that. And then we realized that there are, you know, a vast majority of storage tanks across the United States, and that these are a great platform for thin film solar, because the tanks are there, they're on the roof. whatever reasons. Sorry.
Yeah.
So-
No, Tim, I'm glad you brought that up, Tim. Yeah, Frederick made the comment earlier. I think he even used the word greenwashing, but these are significant energy producers, and this is a real thing. Like to Tim's point, there are thousands and thousands of these tanks across the country, and you can imagine the difference we can make. This is unused real estate. It's usually in the sun. It doesn't matter if it snows on top of it. Like, so not only can we provide our own, and a lot of these, it could be community solar projects. Like this is something that could be a real game changer if we start covering our competitor tanks, which is what we're doing now. We're marketing it even next month at a trade show to all our competitors. So this is a real thing. It's not greenwashing. We produced 200,000 kilowatt hours as of a couple of years ago, just on the initial pilot program. So it's real energy that we can produce. And in some cases give back to grids and things. So sorry, Tim.
No, that's all right. I'm listening to what you say, but I also appreciate our youngest viewer at the Shapiro family household for providing us a glimpse of the future. But I just want to say one of the things we're looking at, and I didn't touch upon it today, right? There's potential for these storage tanks to be turned into saltwater batteries. So there's technology that exists that would take the solar output that's produced during the day. It can be stored in a saltwater slurry. And again, I'm not a chemist, so I can't explain how it works. That would allow these tanks to then.
Can't you just give me her email address?
That would then allow these tanks to store that energy and then put it back into the grid during when it's dark. So, I mean, those are the things that we are looking at, and it makes sense for them to be in an industrial area, in an area where our, historical tank farms have been located.
Thanks, Tim. I was hoping that you would bring that up because last time I was over there, I was like, that is a really cool idea, but I didn't want to bring it up if you weren't going to. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, just again, one of the reasons that it's important is, we're a large industrial facility. We have people come to us when we started putting out our thin film solar. We have people coming to us, some of our own employees. They say, my family has a camp up in, Trescott Township. Would you guys be interested in putting a solar field on our, 80 acres in Trescott Township? And the answer is yes, we'd be interested, but the answer is sorry, we can't do it because there's no major electrical interconnect. So all of our terminals are located in an area where it's already industrial. There's already a major electrical interconnect. So there we see a lot of synergies in being an energy hub. So